You're looking for a laptop that won't quit on you halfway through a long render, a day of CAD work, or a marathon of video calls, something that feels solid, runs smoothly, and actually just works without you having to become a tech support wizard. The big fear is spending a premium on a machine that looks impressive on paper but ends up being a daily headache, whether it's constant thermal throttling, a display that feels cramped, or a battery that never makes it past the morning meeting. That's the exact dilemma many of us face when we start scrolling through mobile workstations, and the Dell Precision 5000 series promises to be the answer. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about what you're really buying. This isn't a gaming laptop in disguise. It's marketed as a professional-grade workstation for engineers, designers, and anyone who needs to keep dozens of heavy applications open at once. The headline specs a 13th Gen Intel Core i9, 64GB of RAM, a 1TB SSD, and an RTX 3500 Anodized GPU sound like a powerhouse, and on the surface they are. But the real question is how those pieces behave when you slot them together for a typical workday. If you're the kind of user who spends most of your time in 3D modeling software like SolidWorks or running simulations in Anodized, the 64GB of memory is a genuine advantage. I've seen teams that routinely keep 30+ browser tabs, a full Photoshop canvas, a virtual machine, and a background render all active without hitting swap. In those scenarios, the extra RAM means you stay in the working zone instead of watching the system crawl while it writes to disk. For a freelance visual effects artist, that could be the difference between meeting a client deadline or pushing it back. The RTX 3500 Ada GPU with 12GB of VRAM is another point where the machine lives up to the workstation label. It's capable of handling moderate GPU-accelerated tasks, think of real-time viewport rendering or applying complex texture maps, without the stutter you'd notice on integrated graphics. If you've ever tried to run a lightweight game or a professional-grade GPU benchmark on a lower-tier laptop, you'll recognize the smoother frame times this card can deliver. That said, it's not a top-tier RTX 3080 or 4090, so you shouldn't expect ultra-high-resolution rendering at the speed of a dedicated desktop rig. Now, where the Precision 5000 starts to feel less like a clear win and more like a compromise is in its thermal and power design. The i9-13900H is a high-performance chip, but packed into a 16-inch chassis it can get hot quickly. In real-world testing, after about an hour of sustained CPU-heavy workloads, like compiling code or running a CFD simulation, the fans spin up aggressively, and the laptop surface can become noticeably warm. That isn't just a comfort issue. The thermal throttling can shave a few % off performance when you need every ounce of speed. If you plan to run long, unbroken simulations, you might find yourself needing an external cooling pad or having to schedule breaks just to let the machine settle. Battery life is another hidden trade-off. Dell ships this model with a 90Wh battery, which sounds generous, but the power draw of the i9 and the RTX 3500 together means you're looking at roughly 45 hours of mixed-use email, a bit of browsing, and occasional light editing. Once you start a render or open a demanding 3D view, you'll be back at the wall outlet in under 2 hours. For anyone who needs true mobility, say a field engineer who hops between client sites, that limitation could be a deal-breaker. The 16-inch display sits at 1920x1200, a step up from the standard 1080p panels you see on many laptops. The extra vertical pixels give you a bit more real estate for timelines in video editing or extra rows in spreadsheets. Colors are decent for an office-grade screen, and the matte coating reduces glare under bright office lights. However, if you're a photographer or a color-critical designer, you'll quickly notice the lack of full RGB coverage and the average contrast ratio. In that sense, the display is serviceable but not a selling point. You'll probably want an external monitor for final proofs. Storage is where the Precision really shines for most professionals. The 1TB NVIDIA SSD delivers quick boot times and snappy file transfers, which matters when you're moving multi-gigabyte project files around. I've watched video editors copy a 50 GB raw footage folder in under a minute, a stark contrast to the minutes it can take on older SATA drives. That speed also helps when you're juggling large datasets in data science notebooks. Loading a Jupyter notebook with a 10 GB CSV becomes almost instantaneous. Who should consider this laptop? If you're a freelance CAD engineer, an architectural visualizer, or a data scientist who routinely runs heavy workloads on the go, the combination of abundant RAM, a decent GPU, and fast storage makes the Precision 5000 a solid platform. The machine also integrates well with Dell's ecosystem. You can plug into Dell's docking stations and use their Precision Optimizer software to balance performance versus